if you break down the federal funds rate, a lower rate doesn't necessarily mean that there's an overabundance of funds. It might mean that there's an overabundance of funds for a smaller subset of counterparties. So if you were, say, IBM or Apple or Google, you could borrow all the cash you wanted at unsecured rates because anybody with spare cash was looking for the safe counterparty to lend to. You go outside the US in these offshore US dollar markets, you don't really know much about who's on the other side of them. So you don't want to lend at all into any of those markets, no matter who's really borrowing in them. So you have this very different characteristic of what is essentially supposed to be a monolithic US dollar money market, which was instead breaking down and fragmenting by different characteristics, including information asymmetry.
That's interesting. So I guess my interpretation of that would be the further out into the euro dollar system, the more opaque and counterparty risk ridden it becomes. You can't price the money high enough to get people to lend because there's more risk effectively. Whereas closer to these big bracket business balance sheets, they're much more creditworthy and defined counterparties.
And that's negative elasticity in another form, right? Because the economy, the financial system requires risk taking where there shouldn't be such difference between the best quality and the worst quality. There should be a much narrower spread between them because that's how a market works. It's supposed to be everybody's competing for the same funds.
Right.
But if those funds suddenly start to preference only the best quality borrowers, you can see how it leads to only increasing trouble.